We are Raivis and Simona. We are working daily with a small and large organization to bring high-value analytics to the fruition.
And today we are joined by Rudi Pasternak, business strategy and value advisor at Qlik, one of the leading platforms shaping the future of the data and decisions making.
And in today's episode, we are going to dive into what high-value analytics is, how to make most of it, and what the future holds for high-value analytics.
And for the starting, I have a question to our listeners. How many dashboards does your company has? And how many of them actually drives business decision?
Rudi, hello again. Let's start from the bit of a historical perspective. It looks like the analytics has become a commodity. Like not so long ago, there were companies with the units in them, with the skilled people who were just privileged to work with analytics. Nowadays, it's spread all around organizations. How do you see we come to this point? And did it actually help to make a better decisions, this democratization?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for having me, Simona and Raivis. Really a pleasure to be here. And the question you ask is actually really important. I mean, analytics is something which is at the core of every business because data is everywhere, right? And here it depends on how it became a commodity. Commodities can be seen in different ways. So we have always to judge what purpose does this commodity have. You can have, for example, if we talk about the extremes, self-service on the user level, or drive governed high-value use cases which bring organizational value. What we see in the field out there is a mix of both, right? So you want to harvest value across your organization in a governed way, but still be flexible enough to provide your users, your people in the organization, everything they need to make ad hoc decisions based on data.
Rudi, your job isn't just about analytics. It's about creating business value. How do you define high-value analytics versus just analytics?
Yes, so as you mentioned, it's my job basically to identify value and guide organizations in harvesting it. And I experienced that just analytics is if there is a disconnect between the business side of things and the technology services within an organization. If this disconnect exists, then usually it tends to how you just described it, just analytics. So they provide a scalable architecture for business to do self-service, as an example. Whereas high-value analytics would mean that from a mindset perspective, you would then be value-driven, right? And you would seek to identify business value across organizations. An example could be if procurement and finance and IT join forces together, they can eliminate dependencies and really realize business value which can help achieve certain objectives within an organization.
To follow up on the high-value analytics, how now is the question how it's being built. So what are the in your opinion, top 3 stepping stones for any organization or data people who are working with implementing analytics to cover like those 3 stepping stones to make sure that the projects or initiatives are getting on the right track and being successful?
Yes. I mean, on that front, it always depends where the project starts, right? We have basically, from just a textbook example from Porter's value chain, you have the supporting and primary functions. And if the project is in a secondary function, usually the goal is cost control because they are cost centers. On the other side, we have the primary functions, which are profit centers for generating revenue. And I can give a quick example on that, which will then show you the stepping stones. I recently talked to a customer. They had 2 competing initiatives. One was driven from business, one from IT, for tools which have the same capabilities. And but the decision-making criteria were totally different because one initiative was driven by a cost center. So they only looked at cost. So cost now and future cost. Future cost is usually higher than the cost now. This would equal a negative ROI, right? So decision declined. But the project which the primary function does, so the profit center, is being decided on business value. Mm-hmm. So you are not comparing apples with apples, but apples with a Ferrari, right? The business value is what you want to get. It's not about the cost, but about what do I get. And when it comes to profit centers, they ask another question. They say, what do I have to invest to achieve a certain outcome? Whereas cost centers are being judged by, okay, how much can you save? How much can you control cost? How much can you drive down cost with this initiative? And if it's a decision for a tool which enables you to achieve a certain outcome, you are blocking yourself there. And this is the biggest stepping stone, right? And this shows that a framework or an approach to identify the right response to a certain need has to be anchored within this organization and for everyone the same, right? Decision making for initiatives, for investments have to be aligned because just as we look back on this example, it shows a big disconnect within this organization.
Rudi, I would like to go deeper to the projects which was implemented very successfully. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, in what kind of companies or work environments does analytics bloom and why? And what do their leaders do differently?
Companies in which analytics, which is a huge topic in itself, right, is this a container for different things. And in companies where analytics thrives, so the creating outcomes with your data based on your technology landscape is in companies which have a value-centric approach to that. So they want to generate outcomes rather than giving the users just something to work with, right? And in successful collaborations, the mindset is also very important. So when you talk with your peers and being value-driven, this will give you better results than if you focus only on your area and act within your responsibilities. So an open-minded, value-driven organization which has an approach to formulate and quantify and evaluate value before change happens, and then decide based on the impact what makes more sense, are organizations where analytic really creates a competitive advantage and blooms.
Yeah, Rudi, and follow up on that, the value-driven approach comes from you very clearly out, and how the companies that are the beginning of analytics implementation or maybe want to revitalize that, how actually they start to look at the value? Is it a difficult process, or where this beginning is for?
Yeah, this is a good question. I mean, going into new waters is always a challenge, right? But those things, they are not rocket science. So if those organizations have the right partners at their side with experience in these areas, then they can guide them towards becoming a value-driven organization.
In our experience, in some companies, after initial excitement of successfully implemented analytics projects, the process sometimes stalls. Mm-hmm. Why does it happen?
Just from experience, organizations are often acting in silos, right? And being value-driven sometimes happens throughout an initiative driven by a business unit. And if this initiative or if this approach isn't followed by other departments for the future change, this innovation process can stall. So it depends on consistency, having the right framework to be value-driven and to address change in an outcome-centric way. You
probably have experience in laying down this framework, working in the various projects of yours, and how easy it is for companies to adopt this approach?
I mean, you wouldn't believe me if I say it is way too easy. But successful organizations take it seriously. I mean, it is something which you have to do, which you have to follow, where you have to be you have to be consistent with it. If you have a framework which enables you to identify the organizational impact before change happens across your organization, this will just give you an edge.
So competitive advantage comes here.
Yeah. Yes, correct.
All right.
Competitive advantage is a big topic, yeah.
I want to introduce also Rudi, the term self-service, which is abundant in analytics, which basically means that anybody in company can create his own dashboard. But in the same time, there is a responsibility of data governance. So how to make this data trusted, and how companies are actually implementing, in your experience, the self-service, so it is trusted and governed, but in the same time it doesn't limit. So
self-service and governed are, let's say, two words which will never be friends, right? Self-service means that people can do what they want, let's say, right? But there is a change. So I've seen different setups in an organization. The closest which comes to govern self-service, but I come to the crux in a second, the closest which comes to govern self-service is if you have development teams close to the business units, addressing the business demand directly without the bottleneck of a central department managing all those requests. And you know how crazy it can be, and how much time can be lost waiting for business critical data to do analytics for decision making, right? So this is an option, but if we define self-service, that means concretely that the user can do things by himself, right? And this would mean that he has total control over the output, and therefore we have to guarantee that the data, the underlying data, has a good quality, or a quality which we can rely on. So there are also trends if we look at, so the extreme would be self-service on user level, addressing ad hoc demand from the user, and another option would be fueling that self-service with, I mean, there's a trend in the market called data products, right?
Yes, correct.
And data products are basically helping the user to drive meaningful analytics on a business-ready data set in a certain process. If we take, for example, procurement, and you want to know over the next 3 months what your cash outflow to suppliers will be, then you need a very good data foundation for that. So this goes a bit beyond self-service. So that's what then a data product could do, provide everything you need to drive outcome-centric use cases based on that.
Yeah, but you touched very well on that, the speed element for self-service and governance. How the companies where the speed element is very important, how they are addressing? Are they still, so my question is still, centralized or decentralized approach? Could you go deeper?
Sure. I'll happy to elaborate on that. And at the end of the day, it's a mix, right? You would like, we talked earlier about, or you mentioned high-value analytics. Those are basically applications which provide either for a department or cross-organizational impact. These things should be centralized. There should be some control over it. And then you have the decentralized way of doing things, and this would be with the user, addressing his demand, ad hoc requests, and therefore a mix between governed, let's say, value identification for use cases, and on the other hand, decentralized self-service to give the user everything to make fast decisions. But there are different ways of addressing that. Another customer had, for example, decentralized developer teams close to the business units in order to deliver fast results without the bottleneck, and build knowledge within those teams which can then be shared with the other development teams. So this is also a way of being faster, but requires an investment, right? It requires a bigger team of developers being closer to business units in order to address their demands.
Okay, very well.
Yeah. So it comes down to operational structure and your model on how you want to bring innovation into the field.
All right, but this is very, very, very interesting because this data products you mentioned and the governance usually entails some ownership.
Yeah.
So in this centralized, decentralized approach, who is owning the data and who is maintaining the data?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a bit more?
I mean, there are different ways of doing that, right? So usually, let's talk about best practice. What is best practice? We see in organizations who are successful with that, we see that this is a specific role. So we have, for example, a data owner, a data steward, which sits then between the tech side and business to understand the data, right? And to help make decisions on that. So he owns the data logic for the business, and then we have the technical side who are executing based on the business rules defined by business and so on and so forth. So it's a, let's say, divided ownership. We have the platform ownership, the tool, which is usually with the technical side of things in the house. And then we have the process ownership and the data ownership, which we just discussed.
So both are important, right?
Yes, of course.
All right,
yeah.
Clear, thanks.
One can't exist without the other.
So we touched about the governance and self-service, but definitely the tools in analytics themselves are really important. Is it so that I can actually mess up by choosing a wrong tool for my company, or it is like every tool has a purpose and it's right for a specific fit? So what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it has to fit the purpose, right? So you are buying tools which are supporting to achieve a certain goal. And therefore, it's important to understand your requirements when making decisions. So there are a lot of tools out there which provide different capabilities. So you always have to weigh in what your requirements are and what you want to achieve. And these are vital for making the right decisions.
So regarding the tools, if as we already discussed, if the analytics is a commodity available to everybody, so where then the company actually can get the competitive advantage from?
Buying an analytics tool will not create a competitive advantage for you. It's about using the analytics tool in order to create or to achieve a competitive advantage. And therefore, your strategy and how you approach the decision for a tool is vital. There are different tools out there. Some provide, if we talk about analytics and self-service, some provide easy to go self-service, right? And there are tools out there which can give you the access to this mentioned self-service capabilities, but as well give you the capabilities in order to create high-value applications to harvest or to achieve a competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is it true if I will say with some tools I can create a high-value analytics in my company and some tools are limited to some certain extent?
Yes, definitely. Okay. Definitely. The tools have different capabilities. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if we're talking about self-service, those tools would be Power BI, this would be Qlik, and so on. And if we compare Power BI and Qlik, there are limitations in Power BI which you just can't achieve when it comes to high-value analytics, how you guys call it.
Rudi, you have mentioned that the success of a project depends on people, process, and technology. Mm. We just covered the technology part. Let's move to the people. We often see our younger colleagues with very strong technical skills and senior ones who has very deep business knowledge. How can these generations collaborate effectively?
You just mentioned age, right? There are and the age difference in organizations is quite high. You have people who start with 18 and you have people who are 1 year before the end of work life, right? And this leads to having different mindsets. So if we look at the extremes, we see on the one hand side transactional mindset, so everyone acts within their responsibility, and on the other hand a value-driven mindset, which would mean, if you boil down the ocean, talk to your peers, right? And if we take the age component out, we have only the mindsets left, right? Those mindsets can vary from transactional and strategic, and if you are able to bring those minds together, they can benefit from each other. So those senior employees in an organization which have so much knowledge, and the younger organization which is eager and so technology aware, if they can work together, then this will bring an edge to every organization.
What I heard, that ability to collaborate brings the most effective work in organization. Is it the main skills for analytics for today?
Yeah, I mean, collaboration is the foundation for everything, right? And in context of analytics, there are again different things. How you approach analytics projects. So if you collaborate within the organization, talk to your peers, you will be able to develop or implement analytics which provides value in form of solutions, right? And there is also the technical side of things. So obviously you need to be tech aware to understand how analytics works. And as we mentioned earlier, analytics is a broad topic. It has to do with data producing outcomes with technical enablement. So from tech to collaboration to having the right mindset, everything comes together and is important in analytics.
If we spoke about data owners or data leaders who are responsible for specific sets, how they can navigate the landscape to, I would sometimes even use the word convince management that investment and work in analytics is important. How, maybe you can give some hints how data leaders can approach management?
Yeah, we see that very often that individuals within an organization who are not the decision maker are driving innovation, right? But let me address the elephant in the room. It should be the other way around. The leaders should be aware of their toolbox, and they are responsible for success, right? And in their toolbox, they have different departments, people, process, and technology. So they have to be aware of innovation, what's going on in the market, and how can I utilize my team in order to follow a trend, harvest certain value, achieve a certain requirement or demand. And therefore it's important to, again, be value-driven, talk to your peers, transforms here in talk to your team, understand the personas in your team, and accept recommendations from your team.
So management actually comes in with this value-driven approach first, right?
Yes, of course. This is vital because organizations which have not defined it as a top-down approach, they will have this, what we asked this question before, sometimes analytics innovation stalls, right? And this is when you have individuals in the organization driving high-value analytics. So it has to be top-down because otherwise it would block the process and stay in silos.
Yeah, correct. And this sometimes happens when, like we have seen also in our long-term cooperation, when the management changes. We have a value-driven manager or leader who created a culture, and that self-service analytics thrived. People were motivated and working with the data. And the new management came in with a bit different, let's say, approach. And then these data leaders come to the management, and they sometimes are trying to find the right way how to communicate. So how this is basically my question. How in that situations maybe there might be some approach to the new management who has not this value first approach.
A change in an organization always has risk and opportunities, right? And if you if the new persona covering a leadership role is not value-driven, but more transactional and more into the weeds, this would limit the organization, or cost-cutting. This would limit the organization to achieve their objectives and values. So leadership change is an important topic, and organizations just have to make the right decisions so that it fits their purpose.
Rudi, we discussed about collaboration between younger colleagues, senior ones, about technical skills versus business knowledge. Let's look a bit in the future. How do you see humans and machines collaborating in next few years?
Yeah, maybe an example would be beneficial to answer that question. So if we think about the Industrial Revolution, there are parts or products were basically assembled and created by hand. The machines then basically took over this part of the process, so that the humans then were managing the machine which manages the process. And I see the same things happening in the digital world, so in analytics, but with data, right? So in the future, those called machines will be then, for example, agents within a department which the employee then controls. In the past, we had like analysts in every business department, and those analysts did hands-on work in analyzing and interpreting, discovering data, right? And this part of a role can be, for example, an agent, which the analyst then controls. He can have multiple agents, for example, which, if coordinated well, will provide a business outcome, like a final product, which has then to be has go to quality assurance in the Industrial Revolution, as well as in quality assurance in our, let's say, analytics revolution, which covers obviously also artificial intelligence and the communication between humans and machines.
When we are discussing with business users to get to understand business value and to help them to build the reports, we were scared about reports automatization because we thought it will take my job.
Away, yeah.
How this machines, this AI is welcomed in the companies? Is it with excitement or more with a scare?
Yeah, so different ways to look at it and different opinions I heard about this. Obviously, if you have a very repetitive task or responsibility, which includes a lot of manual work, then your role might change. It doesn't mean that you will lose your job, and that's what many people misunderstand. The nature of your role will just change. You will get additional capabilities. We have to remember analytics and AI sits on top of things, right? It provides you something additional. It does not do the job for you. So there will be always human intervention needed, but the winners will be who understand how their role might change, and they have to be ready to use those tools. So in the past it was called data literacy, and now workforce has just to upskill in order to use new technology. And this is a constant change. And if really new development happens in the world of technology, then this has to be done all the time, right? You have to adjust to change.
Nowadays, when the data is created and proceeded in such a big scale, manual data preparation and data analytics for me looks hardly possible. And when I think about the future analytics, that gives me excitement, these automatizations. And what excites you most when you think about future analytics, and why?
To be honest, I have to say that I'm just excited to be excited to live in this time nowadays, because technology changes so fast. We've gone from manual coding to no-code solutions for complex tasks in a second, right? In a blink of an eye. And that's why I just let it happen and be tech aware and understand how technology can impact personal life, business, and economy.
So, and just to sum it up all, we covered tools, we covered people, teams, culture, management was mentioned. You, Rudi, you are working with one of the leading platforms in the world. Qlik defines basically our data and how we are making decisions. I'm sure you have developed some first-in-class frame how to approach analytics. Could you give us a sneak peek into that?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about things from how is the tool selection, how do you derive value from analytics, the different way of looking at analytics, the importance of a mindset, how important profit centers and cost centers are when it comes to change, right? So you just mentioned a best-in-class approach, right? And successful organizations, they follow such a engagement approach in order to understand the organizational impacts before the change happens. And just in short, what do we do here? We first understand the strategic direction of the organization. What are the goals? What are the pain points behind that? We prove our ability to execute, because when you resolve a pain point, you identify value or you realize value. We prove our ability to execute and quantify the impact of this change, for example, into three categories. One is operational scalability, and we like to show the value there in time back to business. So how much time can we get back to business by implementing these initiatives? The other two categories, which are very important for decision making, are bottom line and top line impact. So both are a P&L topic and very interesting when it comes to procurement and finance and decision making, right? So and that's what we basically demonstrate. We understand the situation of our customers based on organizational goals and pain points. We prove our ability to execute, and then quantify the value and show operational scalability impact, top line impact, and bottom line impact.
All right. So again, the same narrative. Value comes first. Understand the value, and only then touch the data and start implementing it. Maybe sometimes even come with the POC before, right?
Yes.
All right.
This can be also followed.
Actually, we are on the good point in our conversation to wrap it up, in the sense that it would be really interesting and important to discuss how this value is being calculated, how this value upfront is being panned, if you say, how you pan for gold before you actually go into it. And for that, we would like to have your promise to have one more go with our podcast, where we can discuss that in the future in detail. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sure. I mean, I'm passionate about this topic, and more than happy to have a follow-up with you guys.
All right. So with that, Rudi, it was a pleasure. It was a great conversation with you, and to hear from you. And we hope that our audience also liked and got some nuggets. So with that, we will wrap it up, and thank you.